What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? The first half of the season has come to a close, so let's talk about the good and the bad.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, with the first half of the season at a close, we have played 82 games now. Let's talk about the good and the bad from the first half of the Dbacks season before previewing the next series against the LA Dodgers. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. And now let's talk about the first half of the D-back season. And I want to start this pod off positively and talk about the good that we've seen from the D-backs in the first half of the year. I think the first thing that we have to discuss is something that we discussed when talking about the good and bad from the month of June. Ketel Marte and his return to form as the best second baseman in baseball. Ketel Marte has flirted with the status before. Back in 2019, he was undoubtedly the best second baseman in the National League as he finished fourth in MVP voting that season, 329 average, 981 OPS, over 30 home runs, over 90 RBIs, and 10 stolen bases. And the season he's having this year in 2024, he's back to being the best second baseman in baseball. He's had some up and down years since that fantastic 2019. The 2020 COVID shortened season was a weird year for a lot of guys. We'll give Ketel Marte the pass there. 2021, he was fantastic. He was electric. The issue was he only played 90 games. In those 90 games, a 318 average, over 900 OPS, he was elite, but he couldn't stay healthy. 2022, 137 games. He was healthy again, played a good amount, but a weird Ketel Marte season. After having that fantastic 2021, you would have thought a year where he's more healthy, he could be back in the MVP conversation potentially, but no, he had a really down 2022, a 240 average, a 727 OPS. The power disappeared, only 12 home runs, only 52 RBIs, wasn't driving guys home. Don't know what happened in 2022. Bounce back in a big way. 2023, the numbers look good. 25 home runs, over 80 ribbies, 844 OPS. Ketel Marte was back in 2022. And we want to know, or excuse me, back in 2023. We want to know if he could do it again this season. And so far, he is back in a big way and potentially having his best season since 2019. Almost a 290 average at 873 OPS. He's got 17 home runs. He's got 49 RBIs, and he's the best second baseman in the National League right now. Leads all second base in the NL in WRC+, leads in Fangraphs WAR. He leads in runs scored. He's second in RBIs. Ketel Marte is having a fantastic season. You look at the hard contact stats, he's crushing the ball at the plate right now. And I think he's the most positive thing that the D-backs have going for them right now as they sit here, because we'll talk about it in segment number 2, some of the bad, but they are 2 games below 500, and Ketel Marte has kept this offense afloat. Number 2 thing that I want to talk about that I think has been a big positive from the D-backs in the first half. The DH position. The D-backs went to the offseason and it was like, okay, it sounds like they want to get a lefty bat to be their DH. And then all of a sudden it was like, we're going to get Jock Peterson, and we might also get another guy to complement Jock Peterson. The D-backs did that by acquiring Randall Grichuk in free agency as well. And the pairing of those two has been phenomenal for the D-backs this year. They've both at times have looked like all-star level players. I mean, Jock Peterson, 873 OPS right now. Randall Grichuk, a 286 average. Both of those guys, what they've been able to provide for the D-backs offensively when they've been in the lineup, very, very consistent despite their playing time not being consistent at all. When those two guys are in the lineup, they typically show up for the D-backs. We've seen some super clutch hits by both Jock Peterson and Randall Grichuk this season. So I have loved the signing. Jock Peterson has brought great vibes along with Randall Grichuk. Both of those guys have been tremendous locker room dudes. Jock Peterson, over a 900 OPS with the runners in scoring position, has absolutely done his job and crushed right-handed pitching this season. And then Randall Grichuk has also done his job when he's been in the game. And his numbers with runners in scoring position, 313 average, 963 OPS. Love the DH position by the D-backs. Also love number 3. And this is not power ranking. This is just a list that I came up with. Jake McCarthy, bounce back. Love it. Jake the Rake has been one of my favorite players since he broke onto the scene with the D-backs in 2022. Had a really down 2023, was called up and down between the D-backs and Reno Aces, trying to get his swing back together. And this season, he's been able to provide a nice punch for the D-backs and really keep the offense alive, specifically the outfield, because the outfield at times this year has been dreadful for the D-backs with Caro, with Gurriel, with Thomas being hurt. Jake McCarthy has been a bright spot, 278 average, 12 stolen bases, and just gets on base at a decent rate and just punches the ball the other way a lot. So he's not doing too much. Just a lot of soft singles into the outfield, just finding the gaps, line drives into the alley, using his speed to create chaos, crushing left-handed pitching as a left-handed batter. That's been the biggest emphasis on Jake McCarthy's game this season, is the fact that he has a 390 average and an 859 OPS against lefties this year, has crushed that part of the play, and it's been really impressive to see. Jake McCarthy has been phenomenal this year for the D-backs. Then finally, the last big positive thing that I want to talk about from the first half of the season, D-backs finally have a closer they can trust. It's been maybe the biggest issue since I've taken over this podcast in 2020. The lack of closer that the D-backs have had to deal with since 2020, with the Rondones and the Junior Guerreras and the Joaquim Sorias and the Tyler Clippards and the Mark Melansons and this guy and that guy. And it's been a revolving door of mediocrity for the D-backs in the closing role. But last year at the trade deadline, they went out on a limb. Maybe not a limb, but they traded for Paul Sewald. They gave up a decent package. Josh Rojas, Dominic Canzone. They gave up some good guys for a Paul Sewald. And so far, Sewald has been absolutely nails for the D-backs. He was incredible in the postseason. I'm still upset with the fact that he blew that game against the Texas Rangers, game 1. I think the D-backs potentially win that series if they win game 1 of the World Series. But prior to that moment, Sewald did not give up an earned run. He was nails all postseason. And then so far this year, since coming back from injury, elite, 11 saves, 0.54 ERA. We'll see if he has enough innings pitched by the All-Star break, but he's definitely deserving of an All-Star spot if he has enough of a volume of a workload to make it there. But for the D-backs who finally have someone that they trust in the back end of their bullpen, it's been a feeling that we haven't really felt as a long time as a D-backs fan. It's been a while since we felt like once we get to the ninth inning, the game is over. D-backs lock it up. They're going home with the victory. Haven't felt that way in a very, very long time. So very grateful for Paul Sewald and the stability he's been able to bring to Arizona. Now I want to talk about the bad from the first half of the D-back season in segment number 2. But first, I want to talk to you guys about my favorite sports betting app called FanDuel, because I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Dbacks money line is one leg. Ketel Marte over on total bases is the second leg. And then give me Zach Gallen over on strikeouts. Doesn't always hit, but when it does, it brings a big smile to my face. And if you want the same, head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And also, if you guys need any help filing your taxes, I suggest Tax Network USA. Here on Locked on Dimebacks, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and be sure to mention Locked On Dimebacks at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's talk about the bad from the first half of the D-back season. Because to be honest, there's probably more bad than good from the first half of the D-back season, considering they're on the outside looking in of the postseason right now, a couple of games back of the third wild card team, the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, currently they are behind the New York Mets in the standings. The Mets have a positive run differential, something the D-backs do not have as they are minus 13, 2 games below 500. I would say there has been more bad than good for the D-backs this season. And let's talk about some of the negatives. The first one seems to be the biggest point of contention right now in D-backs Nation. It's the fact that third base has not been an upgrade this year. You go back and look at last year, Evan Longoria was not bad for the D-backs pre-injury. Once Evan Longoria hurt his back, his season went downhill. But in the first half of the season last year, before he got hurt, Evan Longoria was very good for the D-backs. First half, before the All-Star break, he had an 828 OPS and 11 home runs in 47 games. He was very solid, holding his own, playing decent defense, and providing pop. That's all we wanted. A 525 slugging in the first half of the season. In the second half, he had only a 503 OPS because he did not look like the same guy post injury. But what we saw pre All-Star break from Evan Longoria was better than the pre All-Star break Eugenio Suarez that we're seeing right now, because this version of Eugenio Suarez is horrendous. He should not be on the D-backs and he probably shouldn't be on a major league roster right now. Eugenio Suarez does nothing positive for the D-backs offensively. The dude strikes out a ton, has not provided the pop. Like, if you're going to strike out a ton, at least hit some bombs, at least hit some doubles. But the power has not been there for Eugenio. He's striking out 29% of the time. And you look at the hard contact stats, they've fallen off a cliff. The exit velo was at 90 last year. This year it's around 87. Hard hit percentage was around 43% last year. It's around 35% this year. The power has fallen off while the strikeout rate has maintained the same. And that's a recipe for disaster for Eugenio Suarez. You look at WRC plus right now in the National League, Eugenio Suarez tied for the second lowest WRC plus in all of the National League. He has been bad for the D-backs. This version of Eugenio in the first half of the season is not better than the first half of Evan Longoria last year for the D-backs. And right now, I think it's in the D-backs' best interest when Alec Thomas comes back. You DFA Eugenio, you play Geraldo Perdomo every day at shortstop, and then you just go with the rotation of a hot hand with Kevin Newman or Blaze Alexander at third base. And I think that's your best strategy for the D-backs at third base, in the infield, left side, moving forward. The second biggest negative, I think, so far this year, again, this isn't power ranking. I'm doing it like it's power ranking. It is not. Jordan Montgomery not delivering this year. The D-backs have really needed Monty because you look at the injuries in the D-backs rotation, you look at the money the D-backs are paying Jordan Montgomery. The D-backs have really needed Monty to be good this season. If you got Monty from the any of the last 3 seasons, it would be the perfect guy to have in the rotation with the injuries that we've seen this year. There's been so many instances where the D-backs have needed big wins, needed big games, needed a big start, and Monty has not been able to deliver. The D-backs gave him big money coming off the World Series after he, pitches well against the D-backs and won them that World Series ring, helped the Rangers in a big way win that World Series ring away from the D-backs. He comes to Arizona and he's not able to help out the team at all that he defeated in the World Series. He looks out of shape. His pitches don't have the snap to it. And Jordan Montgomery has been a big disappointment for the D-backs this year. I was excited when the D-backs signed him at the 11th hour, right before the start of the season. Yes, he didn't have the offseason of spring training, but honestly, at the time, I wasn't too concerned with it. I thought maybe he would struggle a little bit at the start of the year, but after a few starts, get adjusted. But it's actually gone the opposite way. He started the year pretty solid. He looked good out the gates, actually. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 7 innings, 3 earned run was his first 2 starts. His third start was against the Dodgers where he got smoked. But then after that, 7 innings, 2 earned runs. Like 3 of his first 4 starts were quality starts where he looked really good. That fourth start, pitched into the 6th inning, only 3 earned runs allowed. Like he started the season well, but recently, Jordan Montgomery just been way too inconsistent since then, way too inconsistent the whole year. A lot of peaks and valleys. And for a guy that we're paying a lot of money to, who we've needed to deliver in some big spots with the injuries, has not been able to do that. And that's why he's been such a big disappointment. The next reason, the next thing that I want to talk about is something that I just hinted on, the injuries. I mean, the injuries have been a big story of the D-backs this season. I mean, with Zach Gallen just coming back from the injury list, the fact that we've never seen Erod, who we signed in the offseason. We knew he was the guy when we signed him that has dealt with injuries, and we knew it was probably going to be something that crept up probably in the season. We probably knew we weren't going to get 200 innings out of Erod, but we thought, okay, 8 starts and then he gets injured. We didn't think he wasn't going to debut into potentially August. Like it feels like Erod is probably only going to make like 12 starts this season. Like we didn't expect him to miss more than half the year at the time of us signing him. It's been a huge disappointment. Obviously, can't predict injuries, but very disappointing to see Erod immediately get hurt and miss all this time. And then Zach Gallen has had to miss time with hamstring issues, which is just such a weird soft tissue thing. Merrill Kelly, the stud, a guy who's been a workhorse for the D-backs, he's out. And then you had Alec Thomas get hurt. You had Geraldo Perdomo get hurt. It's been mostly dudes in the pitching staff that have been getting dealt the biggest blows, but still, Thomas as an everyday outfielder for the D-backs and Geraldo Perdomo as a spark plug at the bottom of the lineup. Very important guys to miss. Now you had Gabby. Obviously, he's coming back, but whenever Gabby goes down, the D-backs just seem to go into a tailspin. You look at the record last year for the D-backs when Gabby went down, horrendous. Paul Sewald, he missed the start of the season. Like this D-backs team has not been healthy, and I think it's been one of the biggest reasons why they've struggled in the first half of this year. And then finally, the last thing that I want to talk about, the last reason why the D-backs have struggled this year, and that's been a big disappointment, some of the standouts not living up to expectations. We talked about how Ketel Marte has been a stud. Christian Walker, say what you want. Finished first half of the season, 801 OPS, as he likes to do. Leads the team with Ketel Marte with 17 home runs and leads the team in RBIs with 53. Christian Walker is going to end the season with over 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, the best defense at first base, and probably over 800 OPS. He's doing what he is supposed to do. Ketel Marte has done what he's supposed to do. But a lot of the guys, Corbin Carroll, the reigning rookie of the year, one of the guys who looked like he could win MVP last year, has not been that good. You look at WRC plus, sixth worst WRC plus in the National League. Corbin Carroll has been a major disappointment for the D-backs this season. Lourdes Gurriel, super up and down year. Started the season fine the first couple of weeks, then it went into a tailspin. The next six was horrendous in the month of May. Elite in the month of June. I still feel like you don't think it's a very good Lourdes Gurriel season overall. Gabriel Moreno, he's had a pretty down season as well. Like the pillars in your team, the Carroll, who is your superstar, Lourdes Gurriel, who is someone that you felt really good about bringing him back this offseason, Gabriel Moreno, catcher of the future. Big disappointments from those guys in your lineup, and it's been a big reason why your offense has been so inconsistent and hasn't been able to consistently put up runs. It was very good in the month of June as it took on a lot of mediocre opponents, and we'll see if they can continue to look good in the month of July. And their first opponent in the month of July is the LA Dodgers, and we'll preview that series coming up next in segment number 3. But let's talk about my favorite fantasy sports app that you guys should go play if you want to win some money. It's called Prize Picks because it's America's number one daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk a little bit about the next series against the LA Dodgers because the D-backs, this is their chance if they want to keep pace in the wild card race and they want to take it to the LA Dodgers like they did most recently. The D-backs just proved themselves in a big way against the LA Dodgers in the month of May. The D-backs don't have a lot of very good wins on their season schedule. There's not a lot of wins against above 500 opponents this year, but one of the only ones that they do have is against the LA Dodgers. May 20th to May 22nd, the D-backs were able to win 2 out of 3 games, and they didn't do it at Chase Field. They went into LA and took care of the Dodgers in their home building. They won game 2 7-3, and then game 3 6-zip. The D-backs looked very good in those 2 games, and one of the key players whenever you go into LA against the LA Dodgers is a Christian Walker, and he's the guy to watch in this upcoming series against the Dodgers. Christian Walker, for some reason, loves playing in that ballpark. I don't know what it is, but his swing is made for Dodger Stadium. You look at his numbers, so far this season, Christian Walker's numbers at Dodger Stadium in 6 games, 1289 OPS, and he's got 4 home runs just this season at Dodger Stadium. And if you look at Christian Walker's career numbers in Dodger Stadium, they're also pretty bonkers. He's got here, I got to pull it up here, a 1040 OPS, a 312 average, and 14 home runs in 30 and 39 career games at the Dodgers. Christian Walker loves playing in LA and going against his Dodgers team that's vulnerable right now. The D-backs have to take advantage. We talked about it on the podcast yesterday, how this is a make or break stretch in the D-back schedule. The next 2 weeks, Braves, Padres, Dodgers, Padres, Braves, Blue Jays, a brutal gauntlet the next 2 weeks as you go into the All-Star break. It all starts against this LA Dodgers team. D-backs already took care of business against them once in the month of May in LA. The D-backs need to do it again. The Dodgers right now are vulnerable. They are down bad with injuries. Mookie Betts will not be there for this rematch. Yamamoto will not be there for this rematch. And guess what? You actually look at the pitching matchups for the D-backs in this upcoming series, it is set up for the D-backs to potentially win another series against the LA Dodgers because you look how it's set up right now. I wish it was a Brandon Pfaadt going instead of a Jordan Montgomery, but Ryan Nelson in game number one against Bobby Miller. Again, we don't love Ryan Nelson at all, but Bobby Miller not having a great season, 6.75 ERA, and the D-backs looked real comfortable against Bobby Miller in the postseason last year. That's someone that they've seen already a bunch so far. So they are very familiar with what he throws and his pattern. So I do like the setup for the D backs. I don't like the D backs throwing out Ryan Nelson. Could be a potential slugfest between both teams, but at least the Dodgers aren't throwing out a Tyler Glass now, who will not be pitching at all in this series. In game number two, Gavin Stone having good season for the Dodgers. And it's going to be another opportunity for Jordan Montgomery to prove himself to D-backs fans. Going against LA Dodgers, you have another chance to make a name and make an impact in the wild card race, in the NL West standings, and to really gratiate yourself to D-backs fans if you can have a good start, Jordan Montgomery. I'll tell you this right now. If you go out there and have another blow-up start against the LA Dodgers, you will get booed off the plane when you come back to Arizona. So we pray Monty, the highest paid D-back, can have a good start against Gavin Stone. But if you can somehow at least win one of the first two games, that's what you really got to do if you're the D-backs. Win one of the first two, because then the D-backs have moved up Zach Gallen's start. Now he is pitching in the finale against Landon Knack, who has had himself a pretty good year as a Dodgers replacement level starter. Zach Gallen in the finale will give us a chance to win the series. And if the D-backs can steal one of the first two games, I like the D-backs' chances of winning this series against the LA Dodgers, which would be absolutely perfect. This is the best time of year to do it against the Dodgers. They are vulnerable right now. They are dealing with a lot of injuries. Then you look at the schedule for the D-backs, is not going to get any easier from here on out. If you want to keep pace in the wild card race, I said you probably got to go 7-6 over the next 13 games in this brutal stretch that you face entering the All-Star break. If you can do that, I think you set up well, because I think coming out the break, the schedules are not looking too bad. The second half of the season, the schedule is looking pretty favorable for you. This next 2 weeks, I think, is the tough stretch in the D-back schedule, and it starts with a very familiar opponent in the LA Dodgers, who are at not their best version of themselves right now. No Max Muncy either. So D-backs have a chance to really do something. They're going to have Zach Allen, their ace in the finale. They're going to have Jordan Montgomery going game number two. Hopefully he can step up. Maybe game one is a slugfest where the D-backs can just outslug the Dodgers, and potentially Christian Walker, who already has 4 home runs on the season in Dodger Stadium. Maybe he shows up in a big way in game number one to deliver the D-backs a win. We'll see what happens, but we'll be right here, of course, on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast as we deliver more D-backs news, coverage, and insight tomorrow. Come back tomorrow for more and another Locked on D-backs podcast, of course. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.